What up, people? Coach V, New Breed Boxing. When is it okay to throw in the towel, and when is it okay to stop the fight? This is a highly debated topic that a lot of fighters don't want to think about, and it is more of the responsibility of the coach to keep this at the forefront of his mind, because the fighter's not going to know when to save himself from himself. What is usually your biggest attribute can also be your biggest undoing, and it's a double-edged sword. This is just what it is. This is the nature of, personality types that are attracted to boxing, because the truth of the matter is two things. We're on the outside looking in, the coaches, the referees, and the ringside physician. So we have to do our best to keep the fighter out of harm's way as much as possible without stopping the fight prematurely. The fighter himself, 9 times out of 10, most fighters are completely oblivious to whatever damage they have incurred in the fight. Your adrenaline's going, your dopamine is on 1,000, and you're not seeing yourself in between rounds. Because I can guarantee you, if somebody held up a mirror to the face of the fighter in between rounds when they start incurring damage on a certain level, they would stop the fight. But like I said, with all the factors, compounding, not really knowing how badly you're injured, stuff like that, guys are, sometimes they're shocked when they get back to the locker room and they see how bad they look, and they're like, holy shit, I didn't know I looked that bad. And they didn't feel the pain because like I said, you don't feel pain so much when your adrenaline is going. Body shots and stuff like that, yeah, headshots. I mean, you get stung, but usually you can shake those off, and that's the scary thing about those, because that damage is usually more something that develops down the line. But there have been cases, unfortunately, as we've seen recently, where the head trauma was so much that it actually wound up actually causing death shortly after the fight, or during the fight, in some cases. And that's extremely rare, but nobody can tell how badly someone is really injured, to be completely honest. I mean, there is no MRIs and CAT scans going on in between rounds. I wish we had that technology, but as of right now, we're still kind of in the stone age with the sport, and you're still rolling the dice. So it's still the job, like I said, of the coach to keep his fighters' best interest at heart. And if he's got to throw that towel in to stop the fight, he's gonna have to wear that. And I've seen more lifelong bonds broken over a coach stopping a fight with the full intention of protecting his fighter than a guy that lets his fighter go too long, and at the end of the day, the fighter will take responsibility for that. I've never really seen too many incidents where a fighter incurred a lot of damage and blamed his coach. Usually they're kind of ready for the worst, and they just they don't really put the blame on anybody but themselves. And that's again, it's a weird dichotomy, because yes, you're taking the risk, but also you're putting your life in your coach's hands. And if he doesn't do his job, you may, like I said, walk out of that ring a different person than you walked in. And I would rather a fighter hate me because I stopped the fight a little too early than to stop it too late. Fortunately, that hasn't happened too many times, but I have stopped fights before where I knew a guy, that's what happens when a coach is in tune with his fighter really well, and you've been around him. That's why it's always best to try to stay with the same coach for as long as you can, because he knows you well. It's like a relation, it's like a marriage. You don't want to keep getting divorced and remarried because people, you don't know who you're dealing with. The coach doesn't really know you well enough to know if you're hurt, or before, during, or after the fight, if you're on your A game, because he doesn't know you. Once you've been around somebody long enough, I can tell, like, this guy normally throws a certain amount of punches around, or when he's in this situation, this is normally what he does. Whether guys take breaks here and there, or whatever the case may be, you got to know your fighter. So I think that bond should be established for a considerable amount of time before you actually start going into competition with guys in your corner. That's a very important thing. And again, it's a thankless job, you know, but me personally, when I see a fighter, two things I look for. Obviously, you know, visual damage. If I see like a superficial injury that could become, you know, something that could permanently damage them, like impairing their vision, or, you know, facial damage, bone damage, stuff like that. I've seen some physicians let some fights go way too long. That just surprised me. Like very gruesome injuries that happen early in the fight that are only gonna get worse. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, dude, there's no way you're gonna let this fight continue, and they do. And also, so you can't depend on the doctors. And then also, I've seen referees. Perfect example. Look up Tommy Morrison versus, I think, Ray Mercer. He must have hit him like freaking 18 times after he was out on his feet. And the referee was right there, basically in between them, with his mouth open, watching like a spectator. He went from being a professional to just another freaking person from the crowd at that point. Totally useless. You know, that's why you as a coach, you know, you got to be ready to jump in and make that, you know, make that call, man, and, you know, be the guy that everybody's going to wind up hating. But, you know, like I said, man, it's better to stop a fight too soon than too late. And again, that door is always going to be open. There's always going to be the what ifs. What if I would have came back, got my second win? Fighters are always optimistic, so they're not going to want to hear that, you know, they were, you know, on a downward spiral and exponentially getting beat up worse as the time was, you know, ticking. But this is what it is, man. And this is, you know, this is what makes boxing so difficult, man. It ain't just what happens in the ring. It's what happens outside the ring. And like I said again, man, I've had guys beg me to stop. And I told them, no, man, I'm telling you, you're good. Maybe it was a body shot or something, or some other, you know, some other kind of injury that I know he could recover from if he could create the distance, like I said. And that's, you know, that's still a judgment call and a gamble, but I've been fortunate enough to where, you know, I haven't had any, you know, any situation where I thought a guy could continue and it got worse. I've had guys beg for me to quit and then go back out there and wind up winning the rest of the fight and, you know, surprising themselves and then loving me forever. So it's a double-edged sword, man. It's a crazy dichotomy, being you know, being in the corner and wanting the guy to fight hard, but also having to be ready to stop him from taking it to the point of no return. But anyway, hope you found this informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, share. Go check out my Instagram, coach.v_. Till the next time, we up out of here. Ow.